Hello, paddling community. We're starting something new this Thursday. Welcome back, or thanks for being here for the first time. I am Kristen Thomas, and this is SUP Connect Live every Thursday, usually at 1 p.m., somewhere around there. But we are thrilled to kind of be changing direction a little bit. We're still interviewing one person, but we're going to focus on a brand every Thursday. So my good friend Anthony Scaturro is going to start us off with a brand that's beloved definitely in our area and hopefully known by a lot of you around the world. If not, you're going to learn a lot about SIC Maui and about Anthony and kind of the industry, and talking about what a crazy year and what does that mean inside the industry and what's been happening. So I'm really excited to dive down into that. Anthony's from back east, but I know him as a local here in Southern California. He's got two little darling twins who may or may not be joining us because he just picked them up from school. It's a half day. Best laid plans, eh, Anthony? So remember, we do have a Facebook group. Going to be posting some pictures of different SIC boards and things that we talk about, and links to how to get a hold of him and the brand. So don't forget to find us on Facebook at SUP Connect Live and KT Outside Discussions. That's the name of it. It's kind of a long one with hashtags in it. Hopefully you can find that okay. So I think we have Anthony on. We sure do. So without further ado, I'm going to bring him on and let's talk about the amazing brand that he runs. Come on now. There we go. And thank you, everyone, for being here. I'm on and ready, he says. And I see Ansley and Mark. You've got a bunch of people. Oh, look at your lovely background.
Oh, yeah. The clouds, I pushed them that way.
Yeah. Well, not to make people jealous, but it's actually really warm. It's like a summer day. What's up with the last 6 weeks? Our summer moved to the fall because the weather's crazy everywhere.
Still need rain, though.
Yeah, and it's supposed to be a La Nina year.
Oh.
But I want to jump in. Anthony, you have such an interesting story too, but let's start just with SIC Maui because it's such a great brand, and it has, well, you tell us sort of what defines it and how it's certainly grown and is ever expanding, but tell us about kind of what it stands for and what it means.
Yeah, well, first of all, Sandwich Islands Composites, acronym is SIC, stands for, well, Mark, who's the founder, Mark Rapphorst, named it after the Hawaiian Islands, which is what the Sandwich Islands are. Captain Cook discovered the Sandwich Islands and named them after the Earl of Sandwich. So Mark, being all creative, came up with Sandwich Islands Composites, and then that was abbreviated, like in our logo, to SIC. So that's kind of the root of the name.
And then I forget to add in the Maui part of it. It's
yeah,
SIC
I mean,
Maui, right?
is because it's in Maui, but it's really SIC. But a lot of people call it SIC Maui. Our handle on Instagram and Facebook, and our website is SIC Maui. But yeah. So we added Maui in too because we're from Maui.
Yeah.
Or the brand is from Maui. So, and it was interesting. I was running a company called Flow Sports, which we did flow snowboarding. And we were looking for other brands coming from the water sports business. And we were part of the Neil Pride family, which was involved with JP Australia and Cabrina Kites and Neil Pride windsurfing. And, we wanted to explore stand-up paddleboarding. So I kind of went on a worldwide quest to find a good brand that would fit. And through common friends from my days of windsurfing, I was introduced to Mark personally. I had been aware of the brand. And really appreciating the brand for, what they accomplished in open ocean channel crossings and just for the beautiful shaping and design that Mark did or does. And so, we had a conversation, hit it off, and then Flow Sports ended up buying that brand, which was predominantly a custom brand really at the time.
Yeah, I was just going to ask. It was all custom, as him doing those boards and he was renowned for his, downwind boards.
Correct. Yeah. So, but it was known, like you said, renowned. It was renowned worldwide. So a lot of the custom boards they were making were, quite expensive, but there were people who really wanted them because they're very specialized. And he would crate them up and ship them around the world. So there was a lot of pent up demand for the brand. And when we came in, Mark's vision, was to have the brand go global someday. And, but, that's not really where he wants to spend his time, all of a sudden turning into, running the production, brand, and distribution. He wanted to continue to innovate, but find a partner who would help him expand the range, put it into mass, into production, and to make it available and more accessible worldwide. So that's where Flow Sports had come in. And so we continued to run that for some years. And at some point, we had some dialogues with BIC Sport about maybe them building some mid-tier, boards using their technology out of France, which is largely thermoform. And, like many of those conversations, that courtship goes on for years. At some point, they had inquired about buying it. And the timing was kind of good as well for the SIC brand. It's great because they had such strong roots in Europe, really unleashed the potential when they did buy it within the European markets. So we're really strong here in, setting up distribution and gaining good penetration in Europe. But, they have 30 years of distribution of water sports products in Europe. So that was great for the brand.
Oops. Just lost your audio. Hopefully people can hear you. Can you hear me? Let's see, did we bump something? Can you guys comment on, can you hear him? Hopefully it's just me. I see you talking, but I can't hear you. Shoot, it was perfect too. So wait a minute, muted. Did you touch something? Only can hear you. Sorry, you guys. We want to hear Anthony. We don't want to hear me. Check your phone and make sure. I don't think I even have the ability to mute. And I wasn't. Oh. Yeah, Terry, I think he looked muted. He just left and hopefully will pop back on. The audio was perfect before that. Thanks for those of you who are joining us. We are talking to Anthony Scaturro, and it was going great, and then suddenly we couldn't hear him. So we are going to invite him back on and see if we get the audio back. Come on back, Anthony. Not sure. Yay. Okay. I don't know what happened, but just.
Yeah, I didn't touch anything, but maybe my kids are watching streaming video while I'm keeping them busy. So I moved closer to the router. Not as pretty of a location, but.
Arturo says he can hear you perfectly now. But yes. Good, so we missed maybe a minute and a half, 2 minutes of you were telling a good story.
Okay. Where do you want me to pick back up?
Back up to, let's see, it was BIC and distribution is good in Europe.
Yeah. So at some point after they acquired us, it has been great for the brand, that in other markets to make it more accessible, because their distribution, having 30 years in the water sports business, was very beneficial to SIC and making the brand more accessible to other people worldwide. And then also for the brand, we were able to utilize the technology that they have, and now we have, which is thermoforming technology, sheet thermoforming polyethylene, and also our ACE-Tech technology, which is glass EPS, and then it's thermoformed.
And is that a greener technology? Is that considered?
Yeah, I mean, well, I have to say it's the highest end factory that I have ever been in. You can eat off the floor. Everything is made in-house, from the extruding of the sheets for the thermoforming. Anything that is off-cut, like when you mold that, you have a flashing, so anything that's trimmed off of that is ground back up and recycled back in. So it's a zero waste footprint. All the EPS cores are molded in-house, so it's a very, very clean and eco-friendly process. And the boards, like polyethylene boards, can be recycled as well. They can be reground down and reused again. Those materials can be recycled again. So.
Well, that's cool. Yeah, because that's definitely not the high point of our industry is
True.
boards and how they're made and stuff. So that's cool to hear that there's something that's, a little on the better side.
Mhm.
You talked a little bit about the roots and Hawaii and how it was named. I know on your website it talks about how, you're kind of thought of with that like need for speed and downwinding and, that really high elite board, but you really have an expansive range. So kind of talk about like where that comes from.
Yeah. Well, I mean, originally I'm going to try to move back towards where my power cord is, and hopefully I don't lose connection because these Instagram lives burn time, burn your
Yeah,
battery.
they do.
But so originally, actually, when I got together with Mark, he had a sign hanging on his wall that said "Stand up, show up, keep up." Or no, it actually said "Stand up, show up, shut up." Something to that effect. And I was like, wow, that's kind of interesting, but I don't think the shut up part would be that great for people. So we ended up changing that, as a predominantly racing brand originally to show up, stand up, keep up. And, with the emphasis really, or having that position more towards a race clientele. But
hmm
soon we realized that, stand-up paddleboarding is so much more than just
hmm
race. Race is a super important part of it, but as we've talked about so much, Kristen, with Suck
Yeah.
and everything, community is so important. So, at one point, I was looking for something to send to the team before the Molokai to Oahu, and something inspirational, because you need some inspiration while you're paddling 32 miles across the Channel of Bones, and came across a JFK speech which talked about, from the 1964 America's Cup, but talked about how we're all united by water. You talk about differences and how we're united.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the inspiration to our Bound by Water tagline, in that, changing it really, you can still be a racer and meeting people from around the world, or people that are fans and that are just regular everyday paddlers, but how we all come together from all these different walks of life to, with a common thread being paddling, and that we're bound by the water that we're
The water.
paddling on. So
Yeah.
that really transformed us as a brand from psychologically from being so fixated on podiums. And again, we're still
You and I
ambitious
still
about,
love the race part of it.
yeah, exactly. But, we believe it's, it's a beautiful sport, beautiful community, and we needed to make SIC accessible to people that are recreational paddlers out there, for fitness or for fun or for family. So
Whatever they choose to do, and we've had
yeah,
many discussions about that and that pyramid, and you have to build, hey, even if you only care about the race thing, you still have to continue to get new people into it. It needs to be accessible, and so that you will get those people who do transition into some of the more niche things like racing.
right.
So yeah, such an exciting line. But let's back up and switch to you for a minute, and
All
because
right.
you have a whole sports background, and you grew up in the retail world, I believe. And it's Pittsburgh? Is that where you grew up?
No, I grew up just north of Boston,
Okay.
and my dad and mom ran and still run 48 years later.
Ah,
Yeah, a ski and sporting goods store. And so
cool.
ski and then snowboarding was always part of the family business. And then anything to do with water and or skateboard and stuff we've done in the summertime, from uh, general sporting stuff like tennis to water ski to windsurf, which is where I got my start in windsurfing, inline skating, skateboarding, all that. So, I started windsurfing back just around the Windsurfer Classics, and then we started teaching on the local lake, and then I did a lot of amateur racing, and then did some of the PWA tour, mostly in the U.S. and the Caribbean. And it's funny, though, because some of the guys I looked up to then, like Scotty Trudeau was one of the guys. He was a racer for Bic, incidentally, and lived in Connecticut at the time before moving to Maui. He was one of the guys I was visiting just as friends on Maui, and he's the one who introduced me to Mark. So it's funny how all those things.
Yeah, there
Circle.
seems to be, it comes back around connections in the windsurfing world too. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Again, bound by water, right?
exactly.
hmm
That lifestyle's served me to this day quite nicely. But and so then I ran the snowboarding company, but I was eager to get back, and bring some counter seasonal business back into the business. And loved water sports. So that's kind of why we were looking at stand-up paddleboarding. In the beginning, really, no one knew where it was going to go. Was it
Uh-huh.
a trend or a fad? And after some years of some people doing some pioneering and people in the shadows, like Mark, I would say, because he wasn't a production brand at the time, as compared to, like, say, C4 was around kind of making a production push. Surf Tech was. Mark was still kind of on the very much the niche
Custom.
high-end
Yeah.
custom stuff. But once, we saw that it was going to be a sticky sport,
Hmm.
we took a more serious approach to it. And I think the key to finding Mark, you know, and fortunately having the opportunity to acquire that brand, there was so much aloha, not to be
Hmm.
cliche, but in that
Yeah.
brand, and with the team and the people that helped pioneer it. I mean, Mark worked with the greats over there in the beginning when Kalama and Laird were going out there cross training for big wave surfing, and you grabbing a paddle and throwing it on big longboards, uh, to paddle into surf, because longer surfboards make wider turns, just like when you're towing into a surf. So that's what they were doing, to stay in
Hmm.
shape and cross train. And they looked for guys like Mark and Jimmy Lewis, among others, to build them different iterations as they were kind of
Hmm.
pioneering it. So, um, and then, a lot of the team with Andrea Moeller and Olivia Manolo and Jeremy Riggs, they also, as athletes, and Scotty Trudone were pioneering the sport. So much, when I bought it, my goal was to help Mark fulfill the goal and bring it global, but not disturb the essence of what made it successful. And I feel pretty good. And Mark is still with us
Still
today. And
part of it, which is
yeah,
fantastic. Yeah.
yeah. So he's a proud papa of the brand as well. And I think we have hopefully done a good job maintaining
Yeah.
that aloha spirit of the brand.
Well, it seems, I know it's had its different steps, but what a perfect marriage to have somebody who comes from like custom and has the passion and R&D, which is still a big part of what you guys do well, but then owned by a company that those that came out of the windsurfing that already from the beginning had that, global ability to ship and already had we're already making a board for windsurfing that was the size of a stand-up paddle board and had
Right.
distribution. What a great way to as you said, value what Mark has built and but share it so that it's more accessible across the whole globe.
Right. I mean, and that is actually one of the key differences between, making great boards and being a great partner to, our retailers and distributors around the world, is that the, oops.
Oops, frozen. Back, you're back.
Oh yeah. There's a business, it takes a business and many people behind the brand, logistically,
Mm.
financially, design wise, marketing, customer service, the manufacturing, to make it a viable global brand. So in that sense, you're right. I mean, Flow Sports was a good start for the brand. Bic has been another great sport, which Bic was subsequently bought out by a company called Tahe Outdoors, which owns Cork Kiteboarding and Ziegel kayaks. And so now we're part of another bigger family with all the Bic stuff that has transitioned now. The Bic brand has transitioned to Tahe.
Yeah.
But, we're part of really a water sports company. Don't want to use the word conglomerate, even though technically it is, but there's so many benefits in that as well, which we can talk about later, like our new wing and how we developed that with the guys from Core Kites, who have
Yeah.
expertise in inflatable,
Right.
things. So, but we can come back to that.
But that does seem like, yeah, what the best benefit of that you were able to keep the core value and the whole passion for and SIC's, roots and
Yeah.
still have all these new possibilities to keep expanding. And right now, there's a lot of that going on. Let's
Yep.
touch on that a little bit. We're
Yeah.
going to talk some more about kind of the industry, but let's pre-COVID, because that's a whole nother part of this discussion, is just what's happened during 2020. But there was a lot going on before that, and just these different kind of directions that aren't just stand-up paddling, but boy stand-up paddling has made things like foiling and wings and those kinds of things. And so you guys are branching out in all those directions?
Yes. Yep. Yeah. Well, you want to talk about pre-COVID first in the market, or do you want to talk about those things?
Tell us a
I
little
mean,
bit just
just to,
more about your, because again, we've talked about boards and that you've expanded
yeah.
to make more accessible boards, but
Yeah.
what else is in SIC's line?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. I mean, 2 years ago, we started to venture into both surf and foil. because we see the brand, evolving as well, and not just serving the needs of stand-up paddleboarders, although, of course, that's the majority of our business, so we want to serve that well. But, there's a renaissance is what we see it in SIC, and that, everyone has an aspiration to be a waterman and a waterwoman, and live that lifestyle. It doesn't matter. You don't have to be, in Maui to live that. If you are looking forward to getting out on the water, to surf or paddle or do anything and, want to live that lifestyle, I mean, that makes you, for all intents and purposes, a waterman or a waterwoman. So, and I think now people see themselves as such, and, they want to surf even on the Great Lakes, and they want to paddle. And now, with the advent of foiling, that people are either stand-up foiling, or it might be foiling behind a boat, or there's windsurf foiling. And of course, one of the things that's going to revolutionize foiling and make it more accessible is wing foiling. So we, last year we had foil boards. This year, the past couple of years we've been working on it, but this year we introduced a complete collection, or rounded out our collection of foil boards, and introduced a collection of foils, kind of, I'll say, entry level to mid, and from mid to high end foils, and then a wing called the Raptor. So our wing foiling collection is called the Raptor series, whether it be the Raptor foil or Raptor board or Raptor wing. But it's exciting. That's really exciting. Yeah. I think, again, a lot of people saw it and think, oh, wow, foiling's cool, but maybe didn't want to try it because it is very physical to stand up paddle like downwind. But wing foiling kind of puts the motor in your hand where you can get on the board, kind of catch speed while you're sitting down, get to a knee, then stand up, give it a couple pumps, and then get on foil. Okay, takes a little practice to learn how to get on foil and trim it out, but it's a lot easier than trying to paddle that board onto foil.
Yeah. So as a windsurfer yourself, what is the transition from being, having the mast and the attached and using the wind? I mean, I assume a lot of it's transferable?
Yeah. Well, first, windsurfing or sailing 101, you have to understand the wind in itself. And, like the very fundamental, like the wind clock, if you go back to your first lesson, 12 and 3 and 6 and 9, from, beating into the wind to beam reach to broad reach to running downwind. So, on windsurf foiling, that's still pretty critical because you're connected to the board, and the trim of the sail is pretty critical. I mean, the wing, to be honest, you still have to understand that, because otherwise, how do you tack or jibe, or how high, or are you heading up into the wind? If you're going off the beach in an offshore breeze, you have to know how to tack to get upwind, or jibe tightly so you can get home. So those things are still important, but the trim of the wing is not as critical. So I think it's somehow managed to make understanding sailing a little easier. And yeah, and that fundamental part about the wind clock isn't that hard, to understand once you get it. But and I think also transitioning where you can pass the wing through your hands rather than have that tack and go around the mast or jibing. You still need to tack and jibe, but it's easier because you don't have this mast connected to the board. The hand pass is a little bit easier transitioning through those. Jibing is a little easier than tacking, oddly enough, I think, on a wing, but tacking seems easier on a windsurfer than jibing. So there's a little bit of nuances there.
Well, I haven't tried it yet, but I just have to say I saw someone not on a foil, because I haven't done that, but on a regular board with a wing. So you can do that, right? I don't know if that's going to be a popular niche, but the whole idea to me of not having to learn both at the same time, or the foiling first, is more intimidating just as an older person. But the wing, I really want to try.
Yeah,
so I think that's pretty cool.
I think the cool thing is, you can stand on the land and practice feeling how, how it is when it's powered up and how to depower it or let it luff. Then, you'll see a lot of people on a skateboard, trying it there before they venture out into the water, which is also cool. So then you learn how to catch speed and, how to do the same thing, because you're really rail steering like you would on a skateboard. So that's a great way to introduce yourself, like it would be a windsurfing simulator, but you're doing it on land. And then, some people learning the foil dynamics by going behind a boat or a jet ski before they put the wing in the hand. So there's a lot of ways to kind of, without getting thrown straight into it, that you can train up on it so that when you hit the water, you're, you at least have some of the fundamentals down. Um,
Cool.
yeah,
Yeah. Excited about that.
yeah,
Let's talk a little bit about the industry. So,
yeah.
what's your take on what's happening in the SUP industry right now? We've had some discussions about it to see if you have the same. We have worked together before. You're my boss because you have been served as president of the SUP Industry Association, and I was formerly the executive director. So I know we've had lots of conversations, but we really haven't drilled down on what's been happening in the interesting, that first 2 months of COVID and then the big change.
Right. Well, I mean, pre-COVID, like with the SUP AA, for instance, when we all, everyone comes together, put your heads together as to how to continue to grow our sport, especially a young sport or a little bit underfunded when it comes to putting together like industry-wide initiatives. It's challenging, to really create some sort of stimulus to the sport. And I think our statistics would show that it was flat plus or minus a little bit with price compression from the higher end. And the good thing is, units may be rolling into the lower end, whether they be, cheaper composite boards or thermoform boards or inflatables, which is a good sign that people are still coming into the sport. But we didn't really have the power to create that tipping point moment. Like, who would know that this unfortunate COVID epidemic would create for outdoor? That really created that's a silver lining to a cloud, if there is one.
Mm-hmm.
That gave people the time and maybe even the money through some stimulus, and maybe rethinking that they needed to get outdoors and enjoy their life, because this is in everyone's face worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
And so that really created the tipping point moment. I think took what was a little bit stagnating the sport, not
Mm-hmm.
because it's not interesting, but because we needed new people to come into it, and got people out there, whether they're on a paddleboard or kayaks or bicycling. So it's, the sport has benefited from it. The key is, what do we do from there, to make sure that we can sustain that. I think it's put it smack dab in the minds of the mainstream consumer, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
And those people are going to the beach on whatever they can get their hands on, or if they're going to buy. Or I think a lot of the retailers and rental and concession operators are really, really doing well. So as long as we give them a good experience, hopefully we
Mm-hmm.
hook them and keep them, and then they will pass that along to other people.
Keeping them and retention. And so how was it for you guys? I mean, we heard, we worked quite a bit with stores, and they were in a panic, of course, at the beginning. Things were shut down. How are we going to survive? Can we pay our rent? But then it was unexpected what happens, as you already mentioned. So were you guys able to roll with it and, I don't know, increase production? I know there's a pipeline and it doesn't work like that you can snap your fingers and boards appear. But I mean, we heard about stores that were running out of boards, that they had more interest than there was, actual physical product.
Yeah. I guess it's kind of like driving up to a train tracks that doesn't have a gate, like out in Oregon and Midwest or something like that. Yeah, you kind of approach it slowly and looking both ways, because if you
Yeah.
make the wrong move, you could get smacked. And we definitely throttled back, not knowing, as many people did. I think for me, one of the piece of news, actually, when the White House went out there and said, like, kayaking is something that you can do during COVID. And I think a lot of people took to that because that was on mainstream media, and that
Mm-hmm.
translated not just into
Mm-hmm.
kayaking, but paddleboarding, just
Right.
getting out there in the water. So at that point, kind of we, listened to the retailers and seeing the uptick there, and then kind of put the hammer back down, which, the demand quickly blew past us. So for us, we, pretty much sold out of everything. Everything that came in was generally pre-sold, and everything that we maybe had from past years also went out the
They
door.
were interested in. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
If you talked about the underfunding, and if I had a marketing budget, I would love right now for us to be having something like, again, enforcing what a lot of people have figured out, but not everybody knows that the water is an excellent place to be naturally
Yeah.
socially distant on individual watercrafts. I just think it's such an opportunity that, it's happening to some extent, and people are getting boards, but I think we have a opportunity to grow it even more right now because of you good points about discovering the outside. I live on a top of a mountain bike trail and hiking trail. I have
Yeah.
never in the 26 years of living in this place seen as many people outside
Oh yeah.
and getting outdoors. So I
Right.
know the bike industry, the camping industry, many others are experiencing the same thing.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, looking
exciting.
at the beaches and how crowded they are, if you're a water person or inclined
Yeah.
to go to the water, you've been there and you've seen paddleboarding now. So,
Yeah.
and you're either interested or not. The key is there, a place for someone to then rent, like down at Baby Beach and West Wind's
Hmm.
concession, or any of the retailers that have concessions. And that's the opportunity for retailers, which are seizing upon that to say hi to those people and welcome. And yes, you
Yeah.
can rent a board or you can take a lesson and get those people into the sport. And I mean, it's a great opportunity.
Yeah.
I don't know if we could wish for more in the positive light. Again, the silver lining about then what's happening.
Yeah.
Nobody could accomplish this, I don't think.
So, some more, that's a great opportunity. So, let's talk about challenges and opportunities because it is such a unique year and unique situation. Do you see some others about things possible red flags or things that might be that we need to be careful of moving forward and or other opportunities out there?
I mean, for retailers and for brands right now, it's also still a challenging time, right? Because
Hmm.
we don't know what's going to happen. We could go back into lockdown or not, or who knows how long this persists and what it looks like. It can change tomorrow.
Yeah.
So right now is the kind of the tail end of the buy-in season for retailers, and knowing how much should they get because the demand is so strong, and committing themselves to
Hmm.
larger volumes or not having enough. And then from the factory capacity, no factory has been ready to deal with the increase in demand for products. So that's the thing, is I think we're anticipating that by and large we'll be in a um, um, almost a sold out status all year, meaning that as we're producing it, retailers are acquiring it. And usually you provision for having some inventory on hand of your key models, because retailers generally are a little bit conservative in booking, and then they
Hmm.
can chase at once orders. But more than likely, we won't have the stock to fill at once orders. Retailers, have to also step up, which is, challenging for all,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. Definitely.
especially the business side. And yeah,
Yeah, Terry from Riverbound says rentals have been incredibly busy. We are loving getting new paddlers, but I also know, and Terry and Corey also, that they've been incredibly challenged with the different rules and ever changing rules. And how do you rent in a safe way?
right,
Out of the back of the store, is the store open? They actually moved stores also during all of this going on. So I know while there's good feeling about the growth, there's also been just incredible stress, well, on many levels, but with the stores and just trying to figure out how to make it happen.
right. No, that's very nerve wracking if you're a retailer, and at times they were not allowed to open, and then you're maybe chock full with inventory and not knowing when it's going to reopen, and then it opens, and then it's like gangbusters. And like Terry, I know, and Corey, working all of the time,
Yeah.
and just it's a burn. I mean, it's good because you have business, but it's physically and mentally, draining to be there all day and doing that. So it's
Yeah.
you know it's
So
an
super
interesting.
interesting to hear like what the future, because we don't know. And again, we have these new waves and what will that mean about lockdowns and people want to get on the water. That's one thing, but how are factories? I hadn't even thought about that part. And factories, are they ramping up for more? And what will next year look like? So we hope to
Right.
continue the growth for a lot of reasons, but challenges there for sure.
Yeah.
Top three regions by sales. Are there different areas? Are you seeing the usual places, or have there been some kind of new bursts of activity?
I mean, I think in general, I mean, obviously there are different, especially in the beginning, areas that were opening up access before others are closing down. So that had some impact. I mean, traditionally, West Coast is our biggest territory, Southeast, and then the Northeast, in kind of that order. And when everything is open, I'd say it follows, continues to follow that. If you have other regional challenges, again, like, restrictions to access, that ultimately will impede some of that for a little bit, and did, but they quickly catch back up because it's kind of like pent up demand and then, running of the bulls. The gates.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Everyone's here.
And then globally, that's the same effect. I mean, by and large, there are some places that were more locked down that didn't give, like Australia was super buttoned up, right? And that's a big water sports community, but they were quite locked down for a while. France, where our factory is, they weren't complete lockdown. And while we could go to the beach, even though it was like advised to stay home, they couldn't still. So
yeah. Although France was an interesting one of the only places that had races, but that was more recently in the last month or two. They actually,
one of the first places when they reopened, to have that.
They jumped right back into it because I had heard that was a place that was quite locked down.
Yeah.
So you have some great retailers out there. What are those best retailers doing to make it right now?
Well, I think that, most of the great retailers have great presence at the water's edge, whether it be a concession or a trailer. And I think having those retailers down there, interacting with a lot of the new people is first and foremost the most important thing. And then informing them as to how they can learn, and then making those things accessible to some of these new people. And that's what we've always said along, right? I mean, when we debated about, Costco sells boards, should they be selling boards? But they also introduced the sport to a mainstream clientele that maybe, on lower end stuff that would have never seen it. And then our job, is to meet those people at the water edge, welcome them into the community, educate them, foster that relationship, show them the difference between something that's $3.99 and maybe $6.99 or $12.99 or $16.99, and start to nurture that relationship along their paddling experience, and hopefully give them the quality experience that really gets them hooked, like all of we are,
right.
And keeps it going. So I think that's what the key retailers know, is that we have an opportunity. It's like a bunch of fish in the water, let's cast a line and and try to reel them in, but in the best of ways, and also making sure these people are safe, because there's a lot of people out there that are just jumping on this and they have no clue of the inherent dangers. And there are a lot, especially for entry level people. A lot of times I think people think the extreme athlete is the one most at risk, but we know from studies that it's people who are, not
just
prepared.
getting, yeah.
Oopsie, hold on a second.
That's all right. It's a boo-boo.
Yes.
We wanted to meet them.
Uh-oh.
The twins.
Hold on one second. Commercial interruption.
Is that Mia or, what's the other one's name? Somebody help me out who knows them well. Anyway, he has young twins that are darling, but but he had to pick them up from half day, which wasn't in the original plan. But hey, they're back in school. Well, hope all of you are going. I see some stores out there, farm boards. It's so funny on Instagram. I'm not sure who you are, but hi. Are you a store owner? Oh, that's Sloan. Oh no, Sloan's the other. Yeah, that's right. One of the two twins is Sloan. Thank you, Terry. Appreciate that. Yeah. So we're talking with Anthony. He has disappeared for the moment. Scaturro of SIC Maui, and got a lot about the brand at the beginning. If you missed the beginning part, really good stuff about the brand and about his background. Thanks so much. And appreciate that, whichever Midwest Paddle League person that is, now that I think I figured out who you all are. Harrison or Doug or Bertie, right? I don't know who handles Harrison, I think is on that. And now we're kind of talking about the industry sort of big picture. Oh, it's quiet again. Well, when they're smiling, if they come sneaking out, you can introduce Sloan and Mila.
Yes. Yes. Mila, yeah. Twins. You can probably still hear them in the
Yes.
back, but yeah.
Nope, can't hear them.
Okay.
Twins. And I saw that both Neil and Danny mentioned one class, one design. And of course, you and I have a passion for racing. So make sure we talk about that. But let me get through kind of these broader questions first. How about you guys? Do you have objectives on how you're addressing these trends? I think you kind of mentioned some of them, like trying to work out what next year looks like. But what are kind of your objectives and goals moving forward with what we know right now?
Yeah,
I
I mean,
don't
we're
know.
just going full throttle ahead. And
Is that Mila or Sloan?
Sloan.
Sloan, Sloan, come say hi.
Come say hi.
Come here, sweetie. Hi, Sloan. I'm sorry you're sad.
You know, Kristen.
Can you
Remember
say
she
hello
said
to all the people out there watching your daddy? Hi.
you wanted to be on TV. Now you're live and on TV.
You're on TV. I'm sorry you're sad. It will all be better, promise.
Yeah, I mean, we have to just focus on moving forward and, focusing on, evolving the sub collection to whether it be on the race or the recreational side.
Mm-hmm.
Surf is pretty stable for us in the offering that we have from, soft boards to thermoformed boards to high-end composite. So that's pretty clear for us. And then one of the major initiatives for this year was, to really do foiling well. I mean, SIC is an authentic water sports brand. So when we didn't rush to come to market, and when we, came to market, we had to make sure that it was best in class, which is our goal.
Yeah. Is that a raptor in the picture that we used to promote this talk?
That actually is.
Or is it maybe earlier? Yeah.
Well, that's the Manta, which is,
okay,
using that for downwind and surf, but that's also the cool.
Oh, we lost your audio again. Come on, phone. Can see you, but we can't hear you. So if you missed it earlier, the Raptor is the name of, I believe, the foil board with the wing package. He might have to sign out and sign in back in again, like it worked last time. I don't know. He has his phone plugged in. Oh, isn't technology so fun? It's so fun. I feel like it's a reunion. That's so cute that Doug is talking to Terry and Corey. I miss all of you. And we all look forward to getting together again. Actually, the next talk I'm doing maybe is premature, but next Tuesday night, I'm doing a panel about SUP travel next Tuesday night. I think we're all kind of thinking about getting together. I don't know if you see the notes. People are talking to each other down here. Your friends, Doug, Terry, Corey. We miss each other, huh?
Can you see me now, by the way?
We can see you now and we can hear you again.
So I think it's when a call comes in and I swipe it away.
Yeah.
Yeah, we like it. Well, we have our little rocks collection and seashells.
Cool.
Looking at
very cool, Sloan.
Yeah. So yeah, the answer on the foiling. So in that picture was, and this is what I think is also cool about wing foiling. We make wing foil specific boards now because they're starting to be advanced foilers. And, but previously people were just jumping on what was otherwise a SUP or a SUP surf foil because they're wider and more stable so that you can stand out in the lineup without falling off and then paddle and then get into the waves. So what makes a wing foil specific board is that you have the power of the foil. I know it's one of my favorites. And again, you can start out by sitting down and getting pulled along and then get to your feet. And the faster you're moving before you get on foil, builds higher pressure onto the board. So it's more stable rail to rail. And then you can stand up. And then once you're up, for the advanced riders, when you're really laying out into a turn or into waves, the board is narrower. So you have less opportunity to touch down on your rail. Or you can carve deeper into the turn, whereas a wider board might touch down, like the rail hits the water. So if you have a board that you want to use for surfing, you can use a wing with it. If you get advanced and you really want to, and you're spending most of your time there, and then they're now product more specific to that.
Great. Interesting. I'm learning so much. And you are a really good multitasker.
Thank you. A lot
Daddy
of
life,
practice.
huh?
That's what COVID does. We're trying to work and homeschool and
Yeah.
feed and
Uh, lots going on. Yeah.
yeah.
Boy, those of you, the teachers and the parents with kids in school during this, I think, are it's a challenge.
Yeah.
But I'm sure you're doing a great job of it. Um, Percentage breakdown, kind of product classes. Have you seen some changes in the industry? How are
Um,
inflatables for you? That's what I'm seeing down at Baby Beach. A lot of
yeah, I mean,
inflatables.
inflatables are definitely growing. Inflatables have been, the majority of the sales in Europe for quite some time. I mean, I think Europe was
Hmm.
behind the US. And so like when we had the $8.99 with a paddle kind of deal around in the beginning of paddleboarding, that was a composite. Let's hope that doesn't happen again. Can you hear me?
Okay, no, you're back. You're back. Yeah.
Okay. That's what's happening. When a call is coming in, it's
Mm,
shutting off the phone. So again, but then the inflatables got better, and in Europe they adopted that really as their entry level package. And as people
hmm.
flocked to that, that became a large percentage of the sales. But I've always been of the opinion that, in Europe in particular, I mean, they have the time for vacation. They like fast things. And then that top end of the pyramid would grow as those people graduated. So now we're seeing the inflatable serve the entry level person here. And
hearing like a bell sound.
a bell,
Yes.
ding dong, because I'm a ding.
Like
Ding.
ding dong.
Yeah, that's because there's a school back there.
No, not like
Because
that.
maybe because we're in school right now.
No, be like a lullaby
Yeah.
singing key because I heard it yesterday and it's not coming from Laura's house.
No, I don't know. We'll have to look into it after. We'll go on an adventure and look for that sound. So, but yes, the
The
percentage of
same.
inflatables for SIC has grown substantially. Um, we
Hmm.
we make from packaged inflatables for entry level, but we also make ones that use fusion and carbon fusion light for those that want an inflatable for convenience. They want it stiff, they want it light, and they want to use it for their everyday fitness touring board. And we even make a 14-foot downwinding and a 17-foot with a double chamber.
Ooh.
That if you go offshore and something happens to one chamber, you have a redundant second chamber in there. So
Hmm.
the spectrum of inflatables has grown, and I think
Yeah.
giving price accessibility, meaning a lower price goods that people want to get into it, which is good, and a lot of high end innovative stuff that's out there too in inflatable.
Yeah. Do you have a percentage breakdown, or is that
I'll
like,
tell you, in Europe, they
yeah.
say it's 80% plus. In
Mm,
the US, I would say it's probably 25 to 30% and growing.
mm. Say that again. You got caught out. 20?
I'd say in the US, it's probably 25 to
25?
35% and growing. It's growing
Cool.
more rapidly now because
Hmm.
people are going out there and going on Amazon or going to the stores and trying to find it. They're on Amazon and some of these other things. They're just getting no name brands, and who knows what they're made out of. And there is a big difference in terms of materials and technology. But a lot of those people are going in and want to into the specialty stores or what have you, and
Hmm.
learning more about the differences. And I
Well, and
think everyone.
yeah, someone at the beginning said Costco has ruined the sup industry, but I think we've had many discussions that embracing those people who start with whatever they start with. And right now, you can be bummed about direct from China inflatable sales and stuff. And I think some of them are disappointed in what they're getting. But then can we help them do it safely, love it, so that they do continue and find their specialty store and find their connection to community and learn how to do it safely?
Yeah.
And
I
Danny
mean, if you
Smith
go
is
to
being
Doheny,
funny. He said it's blowing up.
yeah, Danny,
Yes.
but I'm pumped. Yeah, I mean, if you go to Doheny Beach on any given day, 9 out of 10 boards on the water there, and it's a zoo, are the wave storm. And, you know, of course, all of us that are in it can say, oh, wow, what a bunch of kooks or whatever we want to say. But if we look at it a different way and go, wow, I mean, 9 out of 10 people maybe would not be on a surfboard in the water. That's a high percentage of people to be getting in the water. And if we can convert even a fraction of those people into
Hmm.
real surfers to buy a composite board, that will breathe life back into surf, and surf needs it too. So, the mainstream population who go buy their Alaskan king crabs and their fillet and their baby wipes and all the, things and bulk, paper towels, they go there,
Yeah.
and you're sticking this sport in the face of a mainstream customer that no retailer, specialty retailer, our industry association does not have the money to market to that mainstream clientele. And so I hear both sides of the
Yeah.
equation, but if you look at the positive side of the
Right. The
equation,
exposure is huge alone.
exposure is everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
The rest is up to us.
Yeah. Cool. Well, really good, interesting stuff. Before we wrap it up, what are you most excited about, and maybe for your brand and for you in terms of stand-up paddling? Because you're an athlete and you participate yourself. Um,
I'm just excited to see that so many more people are getting out there and enjoying it. Unfortunately, the racing isn't on right now, but everyone seems to be still, training and doing virtual events, or, just as enthusiastic about getting on the water. So that's good, but it's also, your own friends who maybe never would have tried it are also seeing it and now wanting to go paddling with you. And so, I'm excited that it's kind of like, instead of going out there and paddling yourself or a small group, all of a sudden, you're going down there with a big group and having a great day at the beach, with friends and family of all different abilities. And that's what makes it really, that turns it from a sport into a cultural movement.
yeah. Yeah.
And like surf had gone through at one point, and that is exciting.
Yeah, exposure and education. And it is a really different group coming in too, because there were the early adopters, but this is more of a general population push. And
Right.
one thing that you're doing to help fill those connections along the way is this one class, one design racing
Yeah.
idea that
Yes.
SIC Maui is promoting and
Right.
setting up. Talk about that a little bit. Danny will appreciate that.
Yeah. Well,
Paddling Paradise is doing it.
Danny deserves a lot of credit for it, because back when we had the Bic Wing, previous to SIC, in the Oxbow Explore, Oxbow Discover, they had launched a thing called Race in a Box. And that was designed to give a turnkey solution to either retailers or event organizers to be able to do a one-class race, or one design as they were calling it then, and get people on the water to have fun, to learn how to race, and on a board that was, affordable, about plus or minus $1,000, and super durable, very stable, but it performs nicely. So, again, growing up in one design type stuff with either Mistral super lights or windsurfer classics, and then windsurfer one designs, I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Then it really is a measure of talent. They're not necessarily always the highest performance of boards, but tactically, and physically, it puts it on the person that's in the, on the contraption, whether it be a windsurfer or a paddleboard. So I think, Danny had done that among other retailers. And then, we were talking at one of the trade shows, and he was really fired up. So we started talking more about it and, areas to strengthen it. And, we got Byron Kirk from the WPA interested in it, and other race organizers, like eventually the Euro Tour and APP and the AAU that Danny ran for the Junior Olympics, and a lot of retailers that want to use it as their everyday rental board or to teach people on. But then all of a sudden, like I grew up with a Thursday night twilight series on the lake in my town, and then going to weekend races. Someone can go learn to paddle on that, have that as their everyday fitness board, be comfortable on it, and then enter a race and go out there and have a great time. Whether they win or just have a good time, that's what it's all about. And they can get in it. So we're taking people and turning them from spectators into participants, and it's really about the high fives and doing your personal best, and going down, and as Charlie and Kate say from Stand Up Outfitters, isn't it all about the beer? And having a great time. So it puts the fun back into racing.
Well, and I do think, and now could be, well, when we're able to do the racing thing again, and we have this new group, this new influx, what a great opportunity to have those boards lined up for those who don't have a race board yet, but maybe have their inflatable that they got during the COVID period, but are excited to go to the next step, have that available. And I also love the second, just having that level playing field as someone who's a fanatical racer and has raced in 100 races. It's super fun to race against people when we're all on the same board. when
Right.
you take, as much as I adore my race board and I love that going fast, but when you kind of take that other bit out of the equation, I also
Right.
love that you made it, you put the specs out there so that any board manufacturer can make these, so that it
Right.
doesn't have to be just one brand, which is very traditional. I know you name some of the in windsurfing and sailing, the Hobie Cats or whatever. But instead, it could be, if everybody makes it that way, anybody could make them.
Right. Well, that's in this first phase, we called it one class
One class.
instead of one design, right? Because
Okay.
we didn't want to be the only ones, right? It takes the industry effort to make this work, in my opinion. So
Mm-hmm.
the key is that the specs are controlled, because Tahe Outdoors in France would build the boards. That way, every board they can look differently, but they are the same specs, same weight, so there is no unfair advantage. We've talked about a second phase of that, where there could be different specifications and maybe like a little bit higher end board, but that's very difficult to control and it starts to get complicated. So this is very simple. So we would make the boards for any other brand. So that's why we call it one class and not one design. And for all of the Oxbow Wings and Explorers and stuff that are out there, which there are more than 8,000 of them out there, now probably 9,000, any of those boards can enter into the race. So there's already a huge base. It's like, we're going to do laser, even though laser's already won. There's so many of those around. There's a great base of whether they're fleets in certain places or people own them individually. So it's a good launching pad, not just like, who am I going to race against? They've only sold 10. Which is not the case, but there's already tons of them out there in the secondary market or that people own. So they don't have to buy one if they have one. It automatically fits into one class. SIC Sonic is just one board that is built using those specifications. So that's cool. And the other cool thing is, we know it's difficult to travel with a board, right? So many races have, 6 to 10 boards at the race, which allows people to just show up and either use a paddle that's provided or bring their own paddle, but race on that board and go home without flying or putting anything on their roof rack. They can fly to the Euro Tour and compete in the one class race there and on vacation in France,
There you go.
So, and the other thing is, like we saw at Gorge Paddle Challenge, you use them for team relays. And that really, I think it gets the most cheers out of anything, because now everyone is fully engaged. It's not all superheated. You have teams with pros and kids and men and women and, competing against each other. And, it's just good camaraderie,
Yeah. Love that relay thing.
It's so fun.
Beer, yeah. So just so you know, Instagram cuts us off at the top of the hour. They only give us an hour. But there is a question here about the Atlantis. Ken wants to know your take on the Atlantis.
It's awesome.
There you go.
So, yeah.
What else?
The Atlantis is built as a deviation from the RS, which has been extremely successful as an all-water, more training towards flat water. But we did have a consumer demand for a dugout style board for rougher conditions, anywhere from a Carolina Cup that has, the inside, the to the outside leg and through the rough.
Or coastals. Yep.
So that was one point. Or downwinding, like even in Hood River, when it's moderate conditions, you need something with a little bit flatter rocker to plane through that. And in a cockpit, we felt or a dugout, sorry. We normally call it kind of a recessed deck on the RS, but some people like the cockpit, and it does lower your center of gravity. So it's an incredible board. It's very fast on the flat water. Again, comparable to the RS, a little bit more rocker on the nose, higher rail line. So for cross chop and for that secondary stability, when you really dip the rail, you have more height in the rail line. A little bit taking away a little volume out of the tail, so that if you are downwinding, it sinks a little bit more than the RS, but not that much more. So it's really, if you put those two boards side by side, you would say that the RS is all water trending to flat water, and the Atlantis is all water, rough water downwind. So they split and go in two different directions. They're kind of a tangent to each other, but then go two different directions. Yeah.
So you probably want to have both. Yeah.
Well, if you're very racing in all conditions, you might. Yeah.
If you have that quiver and have a bunch. Well,
Yes,
Anthony, I can't thank you enough for kicking off our brand interviews. Wonderful to talk to you always. And bye, Sloan. Remember, we have a Facebook group, which is where we announce everything. Woo. And we're going to be kind of expanding from not only Thursdays, but Tuesday nights. There'll be panels also. Thanks again.
All right. Thank you so much.
Find us on
Thanks,
Facebook,
yes.
and hope to see you on the water soon.
All right. Hope to see you too. I guess it might be nap time here as well.
Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Thank you all.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.